Well, the death of George Floyd, 46 years old, in Minneapolis the other day has led to some extraordinary scenes now. And in some American cities now, up to 5 nights of violence. And whilst curfews have been put in place in many of them, they've pretty much been ignored. Looting, cars being burnt, buildings attacked, riot police, tear gas, rubber bullets. Certainly friends of mine I spoke to in Washington, D.C. last night, talking about hotels being attacked, businesses being attacked, and in many other areas. And we've seen this ever since the 1960s, that we've seen effectively race riots happening in American cities. Very often the cause of this, as it was 30 years ago in Los Angeles, with the death of a man called Rodney King, very often it is a black person dies at the hands, it's seen, of and we shouldn't presume, I mean, I know we've seen the video, but we should be cautious about what happened there. But a black person seen to be killed by a white police officer leads to riots and leads to the black community, or some of the black community, burning down and trashing their own districts. So actually, putting their own communities even further behind, and many black shopkeepers and others suffering a terrible price. Derek Chauvin, who was the policeman, is due to appear in court on Monday, and the charge is murder. So it's not as if ultimately the authorities haven't reacted. President Trump has urged healing over the death, but said he will not allow the mobs to dominate. And he did send out a tweet which said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, which of course has been seen by all of his enemies as effectively, almost as if he's encouraging violence, which of course in this case he is not in any way at all. But really bad scenes in those American cities. But let's not, I tell you what, let's not be too complacent. Because we saw this, didn't we? We saw the police shoot somebody just a few years ago, a guy called Duggan, and that led to all sorts of outpourings, and we've seen riots ourselves break out in our cities. And you realise sometimes that civilization actually can get closer to barbarity more quickly and more easily than anyone realises. I think there is a perception, a correct perception, that the black-white divide in America is absolutely huge. I've certainly seen that for myself, and people want that to improve and to get better. And I'm sure there are some bad police officers, but the idea, both here and in America, but I think the idea that because something like this happens, it leads to days and days of mob violence and looting, I think it's pretty awful. Right, let's get back to where we were. Adrian in Southampton says, I agree with you that easing of lockdown should be done sensibly. However, what I can't get into my head is people who say we should stay in lockdown forever. Well, Carol Sikora earlier said that many of these government adverts have effectively brainwashed people and they are terrified. Chris in Stubbington makes a plea and says, what about people who work in leisure centres, gyms, swimming pools? What's the government doing about getting these reopened? I think, Chris, they are absolutely at the back of the queue after pubs. And there may well be some quite big cultural changes around gymnasiums and things like that as people have learnt to do exercise at home and take their own exercise. That's how it seems to me.
We will make America great again.